Welcome to The Entrepreneur in You, the podcast that unlocks the secrets to success in the trying world of being a busy entrepreneur. I'm your host, Troy Cummings, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you as we dive deep into the minds of industry experts who have achieved remarkable success in their respective fields. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Entrepreneur in You, where we help entrepreneurs learn, earn, and grow their business. Today, we will be speaking with Amy Fridhi. Amy is from East Windsor, Connecticut, and currently residing in the Bonita Springs, Florida area. Amy is married, and among the many things she is passionate about, being a coffee connoisseur and a feline fanatic would be at the top of her list. Amy is currently a realtor at Coldwell Banker Realty in Naples, Florida, and Coldwell Banker Realty in Milton, Massachusetts, spending time in both areas. Amy is an educator, real estate consultant, and coach, and now she adds writer to her many talents with a new book out entitled How to Succeed at Real Estate When You Don't Really Like People. So let's give a warm welcome to Amy Fridhi. Hey, how are you doing today, Amy?
How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for coming in on the show today, and really glad to have you on as a guest. So I did read in your bio a little bit about education. Were you maybe a teacher in the past? Is that correct?
I was a middle school French teacher of all things.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's so you've been around the block. Definitely.
Exactly.
What took you from the education field into being a realtor?
So it's interesting. I was a classroom teacher, then I moved into some teacher training, and then I moved into ed tech. And after 2 decades in the education space, I just got a little burnt out. Mm-hmm. And simultaneously, my husband and I had been buying investment properties and kind of dabbling in real estate. And when I finally was at my wit's end, he said, "Why don't you just take a break, get your real estate license? I think you'd be good at it. Give it a shot." So I did. And that was 5 or 6 years ago now.
Wow. Yeah. It's, I hear that a lot with people just in real estate. And I think even with some professions, we just get to a point where we just need something different in our lives. So very glad you shared that. And what do you see as far as the biggest difference in real estate in the Massachusetts area compared to Florida? I mean, obviously we know the climate difference, but when you think about it from just a transactional standpoint, is there really anything that stands out?
I actually just had this conversation with someone. I was in Boston yesterday and flew back home last night. So people are always asking. I think from just kind of a logistics standpoint, right now in Massachusetts, we have very little inventory. In Florida, we have, I would say, a decent amount of inventory, depending on what you're looking for. But in Massachusetts, the majority of buyers are getting mortgages, right? So the whole interest rate thing is affecting them. Whereas in Florida, it's mostly second home cash buyers. So you just have a slightly different type of buyer. I will also say, and I apologize in advance to my Florida colleagues, the Florida real estate market is a little like the Wild West. It's there. I think Massachusetts and Boston specifically is a little more tightly wrapped in terms of regulations and the way agents interact. Mm-hmm. It's just different. There's a learning curve down here, but in general, same process, same practice. Agents are great people, so not a ton of difference.
Yeah. And, you talk about, the differences in the market, and I don't know how much you know about this, but it's something I've always been curious for. So I wanted to bring it up. But as far as the insurance in the Florida area, whenever you're speaking with a realtor client and someone says, "Hey, if I'm going to buy this $1 million property, what can I estimate for insurance?" How does that get approached versus a home that's maybe 2 blocks from the beach compared to maybe a mile or 2 from the beach? Like how do you explain the insurance standpoint of that?
I will tell you, I am not an insurance expert. I don't even begin to explain it because there have been so many changes in Florida. So many companies have pulled out. Even those of us who are 5, 10, 15 miles inland, if we got smacked by the hurricane last fall, our insurance rates are changing. There are floodplains that were the 100-year floodplain that all of a sudden the
Sure.
person's garage was underwater. So I always recommend when you're in the due diligence period to be in touch with an insurance agent and get, a solid quote, because I've seen horror stories where someone is under contract and they've done their math and they can afford the house and the HOA
Hmm.
fee, and then they find out their
Yeah.
insurance is going to be some insane number, and all of a sudden
Hmm.
they don't have the money to cover it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I prefaced it. I didn't want to put you on the spot because I know that's not your specialty, but I know that that's always a big thing for people that when they look at Florida, is they really don't take that into consideration as far as that additional cost. And from what I've heard, I mean, obviously, depending on where you're located, that makes a big difference as far as what insurance you can even get. And I
Yeah.
saw someone make a post the other day about the insurance in the Florida. So I figured I'd just maybe add it to the call today just to see what your standpoint is. But a very good advice. I think that's what we should all do is definitely just go to the professional in that area and really have them lay out what the possibilities are and what those costs are.
And I will add, as a real estate agent, I don't claim to be the expert in all these
Hmm.
things, which is why I have, a directory of trusted professionals so that
Hmm.
when a client does say, well, how much is a renovation or how much is it going to cost to put in a pool? I'm not a pool installer. I
Sure.
have no idea. So rather than guess and have them be disappointed, right? I
Hmm.
always recommend, I know this great pool company. Why don't you give them a quick call and check? Or, insurance, pool, renovations, any of those things, lawn care, any of those things that someone might want. I know enough to be able to refer you to someone I trust, but I'm not going to answer those questions that I'm just not qualified to answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's very, very good advice. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now, what compelled you to want to coach agents? Kind of take that leap. Was there any maybe one circumstance that happened, or is it just kind of a labor of love, down the road? Or
Oh, so there's kind of two main themes that I think drove me. The first being this background in education. I love real estate, but I was missing that teaching component.
mm,
And I kept thinking like, how can I bring that into what I do in real estate? Right.
hmm.
So, okay, let's teach people. Let's figure out what that looks like. And then secondly, similarly to the same reason I became a teacher, I had so many great teachers and a few not so great ones that I wanted there to be more great ones in the community.
Hmm.
And so as I come across agents of all varying skill sets and experiences, I wanted to make more better agents, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And I think the better we all are, the more we elevate the profession.
Yes.
There's some stereotypes about, oh, they're just a real estate agent. And I think there's a reason that exists. And the better we are at our job and at our work with our clients, the better we're going to look as a whole. So my goal was to mentor some agents, typically younger, newer, early career, not younger, I shouldn't say, early career agents,
Yeah.
to just help them be that amazing agent they can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from your experience in coaching realtors, what do you see as one of the main reasons that realtors fail, and how does your coaching, help these realtors overcome that failure?
It's that's kind of what spurred me writing my book, actually. I think people want to get their license, so they go take their real estate exam, which teaches you how many square feet in an acre and what property transfers with a house, right? They don't tell you how to start your career, how to find a brokerage, how to understand splits and commissions and caps, like all of those things that, looking back at my own career, I learned along the way. But had I had that knowledge up front, I may have started, higher on the ladder and more advanced than I was. So I think that foundational skill set is what realtors are missing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I see with a lot of even just brokers or people that own their agencies, they're a great agent and they do a great job, but they're not great coaches. Where
Mhm.
they have all the time to sit down and really because there is, I mean, you are an entrepreneur, you own your own business. So, I mean, you are having to learn the accounting, right? The marketing, the social media aspect, and then just the contract, knowing how to write contracts. And I mean, the broker helps you with those things, but from a whole, the broker is not going to be able to sit there and hold your hand with every aspect of the real estate career. So I do see more people approaching real estate from a coach perspective. It became very popular, and I can see the reason why. It's just there's so much more to it than, like you said, than just going and passing the test and now you're ready. That's definitely not the case, and that's great that you offer that coaching to the realtors.
Right. I will say too, there are some really amazing real estate coaches out there,
Mhm.
the Tom Ferrys of the world, and they have a method and a formula that works for a certain percentage of the agents, right? I am an introvert. Despite me being on a podcast today,
Yeah.
I am an introvert. I will be exhausted after this conversation. And I knew early on that cold calling, running scripts, door knocking, all those kind of traditional real estate things weren't going to work for me. And I had to figure out different ways to do it.
Mhm.
So that's kind of also woven into my coaching and my book is basically leveraging your own skills and talents and not feeling like you need to fit in a box of this, real estate agent mold, because we can all be successful. It's just about building a way that works for you, that doesn't burn you out, that gives you balance, with family time and downtime and still makes you money.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very well said. And what's one thing in your field, whether it's coaching or just maybe just real estate, that almost no one agrees with you about, but later it comes back and says, you know what, you were right?
That is a great question. Oh, here's a good one. Um, there's a lot of talk about, or a lot of debate around collaboration among agents, because it's this, shark blood in the water. We're all trying for the same thing. And in theory, yes, but I think that the more we collaborate, the better we all will be. For example, and collaboration outside of your own brokerage, outside of the agents in your
Mhm.
office and the agents in your little circle. I'll tell a quick story. This is when I was full time in Boston. I had some clients looking in a specific neighborhood. I kept taking them to showings, and it was the same listing agent over and over again. And instead of thinking like, oh, how can I beat her? I said to myself, how can I learn from her and how can
Yeah,
I join forces with her? Right. I
yeah,
called her up. I said, can we just have coffee? Like, you seem amazing. You seem super knowledgeable. I'm new at this. I just want to learn from you. We had coffee, we had lunch, And finally she said, why don't you just come work with me? Because you have a skill set I need. I have a skill set you need. And I think we'll be amazing together. And it was phenomenal. And had I been of the, scarcity mindset of how do I beat this woman? How do I get the listings from her? I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And so I think it's collaboration over competition is the thing I advocate that not everyone agrees on.
yeah, and that's great that you say that, because I mean I even see that in my own world sometimes from a little bit just different perspective, but more or less going back to your point of sometimes I may get this preconceived notion about someone, and then when I just go out of my way and kind of say, no, you know what, I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to go introduce myself and talk to them. I mean, 9 times out of 10, there's always better things that come out of that than if I wouldn't have said anything. So I've definitely gotten better at that of just, hey, I'm going to go and introduce myself, even though I maybe have a certain feeling or maybe preconceived notion of that person. And I hate
Yeah.
that we do that as humans. It's like, hey, no, I'm going to reach out. And if they don't, shake my hand back or they don't want to have anything to do with me, that's fine. Right. I've at least reached out to them and made that initiative. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, it always comes out to a better situation than before.
Yeah. I think too, I've learned I don't do formal networking because it makes me sweat. The introvert in me can't handle walking into a room full of strangers. So I've started doing a lot more one-on-one kind of coffee meetings, things like that. And again, to your point, sometimes you come across a person that you're like, what have I got to gain from them? And you automatically go to this, what can they do for me mentality,
Mm-hmm.
instead of let me just go learn about them. What can I do for them? And inevitably, through that organic conversation, you do find commonalities and you do find ways that you can help each other, which is the best way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And are there any indispensable tools you use for your business that you think, many entrepreneurs could use themselves to, to help in their business?
I've started using AI, as crazy as it is. I know that's super controversial too, but it's we're always looking for efficiencies and ways to save ourselves time, and it's not going to take over our jobs. There's always this fear of AI is going to replace me. It will never, in my opinion, it will never replace the human component and that relationship component. But can it save me time writing a property description? Absolutely.
Yeah, you're,
Right.
you're, you're right. And I had that same conversation with a realtor. Actually earlier today, we were talking about AI and, just writing the dreaded, property description, right? It helps us there, but, my background's in real estate. I'm not a realtor anymore, but I used to tell my clients, I'd say, what am I to you? And like, well, what do you mean you're a realtor? And I'm like, no, I'm actually a mitigator. And I truly believe that because no AI software, when you really look at a real estate transaction, the job of the realtor is just to take everybody's personalities and try to mesh to how that person talks, how they, want to handle the transaction, really bring everybody together to make the deal work. And AI can't read that. And even when I used to sell real estate early in 2000s, I would hear people say, oh, well, everybody will just go on the internet and list their homes. And like, here we are today, right? 2023. Yeah. And we see the realtor market just as strong. We haven't seen, these big companies take over and no one use realtors anymore. So I always like to just put that out there to, to other realtors to, don't get discouraged because AI is not coming in and just taking over the world.
Yeah. I think there is a population that will always, go to the internet and go to the fastest and easiest. But there are people that want to know someone they trust is looking out for them and taking care of, all the things involved with what is one of the largest purchases of your life, that someone who knows what they're doing is taking care of it. So there's always going to be a place for us.
Absolutely. So I know you're into coffee. So I had to ask this question. If you had to have coffee with one historical figure, who would it be? Off the cuff.
Alive or dead?
I want to say dead on this one.
All right. Ooh. You've got the hard hitting questions today. Coffee.
And if we need to come back to it, we can, because I know that one was definitely a change of direction there.
Huh. I don't know.
No worries. Let's table that one for right now.
Right. If it comes to me, I'll jump back in with it.
Absolutely. Is there a process, maybe in the real estate transaction that you see here lately that just maybe is causing issues, and there may not be, but I bring that up sometimes to agents just because, again, we're here to collaborate. Is there anything that you see in the industry that just kind of maybe ties up transactions, or you just see people complaining a lot about it? And I bring those up because, hey, let's collaborate. How can we make that piece of the business better for other people if everyone's saying it's just hanging things up for us?
Right. I don't know that I can speak to something affecting the industry at large. I have challenges in my own offices with process and streamline and things like that, but I don't, there are things I deal with that I don't know other agents necessarily deal with. Okay. I will say, up north, when there was like this buying frenzy, we had trouble getting an inspector that could come out. There was a shortage of inspectors, but that's not really a process thing.
Yeah. I never would have thought about that because, in our market, we seem like we have an abundant amount of inspectors, but it's funny how when you go from market to market, because we all kind of get stuck in our own little regional area and don't really think about,
Yeah.
if you go to a smaller town or even a bigger town, whatever it is, they may just not have a certain amount of professionals for certain tasks, just for whatever
Mhm.
reason, because it's just one of those things that, that happened. But, where do you see the real estate arena going in the next 1 to 3 years?
It's going to depend a lot on interest rates. I mean, we're seeing these news stories of 60,000 realtors have left the profession. And I think, like any news story, it's a little bit of sensationalism. I think that's not taking into account the 60,000 that joined in 2018 because they thought it was going to be quick, easy money,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's always an ebb and flow in the industry. I think one of the biggest things we will see that affects our industry now is the commissions, right? So historically, commissions paid by seller, and now that's shifting away. Are we now going to have to, as a buyer's agent, charge our buyer commission? I mean, if we have those buyer broker agreements, we say, we earn X percent, but 99% of the time, that X percent is paid by the seller.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be really curious to see how that shifts. I
Yeah.
kind of get back to, sorry.
Well, I heard some rumblings about that with commissions, and I haven't delved into that, much, but I did hear some rumblings about that. I guess there's some different statutes or laws on the tables there that certain
Yeah.
areas are looking at, but it does kind of make sense if you think about it. Why is the seller having to pay the buyer's fees? I mean, we get used to that. Most of the time, as if you're a real estate professional, well, that's just the way it is. But if you really think about it, like, well, that doesn't really kind of make sense. If the buyer's doing the agent's doing work on behalf of the buyer, then why is the seller paying for it? But I mean, I know there's many angles to look at that.
Right.
How you can assess that. But
I mean, I think commissions is one of the areas that we don't have a lot of transparency in. I've been at a closing table before where the attorney passes out checks, and I do some quick math and realize that of a 6% commission on the deal, the seller's agent got 4 and I got 2,
yeah,
right? And so you don't know. I mean, it's always at least listed how much the buyer's agent's getting, but you don't know how much they're getting in total for that
yeah.
deal.
And it's funny how that fluctuates per area too. I mean, I remember when I did real estate, you could literally go 2 counties over, and they're like, "Well, it's just customary for the seller's agent to get this percentage and the buyer's agent to get
Yep.
this percentage." And then I'm like, "Well, 2 counties over, we don't do it that way," and I feel cheated. But they're like, "Well, but
Yeah.
that's the way we always do it over here." So it's funny how that occurs.
So imagine in Florida, I cover a geographic territory that's in 2 different counties.
Mm-hmm.
And in Massachusetts, I cover probably 4 counties. They're much smaller counties. So I've got now 6 counties that I am covering that have all their own little nuances, not to mention different contracts. Like in Florida, there's a certain contract for Naples and a certain contract for things outside of Naples.
Okay.
So
Tell us more about your coaching and what can one expect maybe while, accessing your coaching services.
sure. So I have a couple options. One interesting one is just a one-off phone call with me with someone who is thinking about being a real estate agent, because so often I would get calls saying, "So I'm thinking about getting my license. Can we chat?" And I would spend an hour and a half on the phone with them. And like, time is money. My time is valuable. So I literally started charging people for that call. And true story, my sister one day texted me and said, "I'm thinking about getting my license. Should I wait till whatever?" And
Mm-hmm.
I sent her my Calendly link and said, "Schedule a time." And then she Venmoed the fee to me. So that's one way I can work with people. I have individual one-on-one sessions as well. And I also have an asynchronous course that really is that foundational set of skills I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The course is self-paced, 6 modules, notes, links, all kinds of stuff to help you start understanding what it is you need to do once you get your license to be successful in the business.
That's great. That's great. And I am sharing your page here. It looks like it's amyfreedy.com if people want more
You got it.
information. That's great. And I see she has a lot of resourceful links here. So if you're interested in Amy's services, definitely check her out at amyfridhi.com. Now, now you've mentioned you've written a book, and I wanted
There it is. There it is.
Here we go. Let me make sure. Great. And they can just basically search how to succeed at real estate on Amazon and purchase that there.
Yep. Or I am literally the only Amy Fridhi in the world.
Oh,
so
awesome.
if at any point you search Amy Fridhi, anything will come up. Anything that does come up is me. And the pink hair is a dead giveaway. So
that's great. That's great. Well, if you guys ever have the need for Amy's services, I also want to show and share her business information. If you can see the screen there, it has all of her information from her email and her direct contact information. And just like every successful realtor out there, Amy is on social media. So as she said, feel free to just search up her name, Amy Fridhi, and you will be able to see her information on social media and reach out to her. And definitely, if you're looking at coaching, I always tell people to definitely dive into maybe some of the resources that coach offers and make sure it's what you're looking for. Because sometimes I feel like someone will go ahead and pay for a course up front that really just has a lot of what they don't need help with already. So look at the course, make sure it's right for you, and definitely check out amyfridhi.com for her course. And I'm sure she'd be glad to answer any questions that you have about her coaching. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up the call today. I want to thank Amy for coming in on the call. There we go. I want to thank Amy for coming in on the call today. And I really appreciate your time. And thank you again.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you for tuning in to The Entrepreneur in You. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. If you found value in today's podcast, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe and leave us a review so other people can find this podcast and gain value from it as well.